he asked me to burn the world down, I would have asked him.
Beef or vegetarian? Roll out of the chicken, so I can only offer you beef or vegetarian.
Is that supposed to be funny?
In 2008, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the MCU, was born. Iron Man, the Avengers, and more graced the screens. It was a great and promising example of how building a wide cinematic universe could be prolific. But of course, nothing good lasts forever when there's greed involved. What began as an enjoyable adventure and a successful example of world building has now devolved into a mere shell of entertainment that relies on cheap gimmicks, such as infallible characters, preachy messaging, main characters becoming side characters in their own movie, and overused, and I say this in the most sarcastic way possible, comedy.
Vegetarian would be great.
Yeah, same.
Okay, thank you. So...
Oh. We're out of the vegetarian too. Now we only have beef.
Looking back at the MCU, it is so blatantly obvious that the franchise keeps shoehorning comedic elements into movies and scenes that really don't need them to be there. There's a lack of balance and subtlety, and as studios become more focused on how much money they can make, they mimic the success of one product like Guardians of the Galaxy and then apply it to everything that they create. However, what they forget is that Guardians of the Galaxy works so well due to its perfectly balanced character portrayals, well-timed humor, and various moving pieces that come together to form a cohesive and enjoyable film. It's quite strange and foolish of a mistake to assume that copying the humor from one successful movie will guarantee the same success for every other product. They think that Guardians of the Galaxy resonated with people because of how funny it was, and while that's partially true, that wasn't the only element. It's incredibly cringe-inducing because it feels like Marvel is trying too hard to be funny. It's like when somebody unintentionally tells a joke that gets a laugh. They didn't mean for it to be that funny, and then they keep telling more jokes or repeating the same one until it becomes painfully uncomfortable for everyone around them who are no longer laughing. If there was ever a depiction for beating a dead horse, that person in that moment would be it. That's what Marvel has done with its movies, to the point where every movie now that comes after is laden with supposed comedy. But I gag every time I call it comedy because it really isn't. Like so many words today, the word comedy is just thrown around and used so lightly out of its definition. The only thing comedic about much of the MCU comedy today is how much the studios actually believe their jokes are funny. I specifically mentioned Guardians of the Galaxy as an example because it's one of the better examples in the MCU of a product that uses comedic elements properly. We're talking about the first movie. Come to think of it, Phase 1 of the MCU in general did have a lot of humor, especially when Tony Stark was involved, but it was better placed and more appropriate for either the scenes and the characters involved. As for the MCU Phase 4 movies, the Phase comedy has really left even Marvel fans wondering what the hell is going on. The attempt at humor in movies like Thor: Love and Thunder and Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness often feels very forced and pretentious. For us to really understand how something is bad or how it became that way, we have to examine what made the early MCU movies so successful, and even what made their scenes funny, or examples of scenes that are funny and that use this well. One of the key elements was the perfect balance of humor and action. Iron Man, for example, featured clever and amusing exchanges that complemented the gripping moments without overshadowing them. Iron Man still felt like a real character, even though he was charming and witty. Whenever humor was used, it was served as a crucial break that prevented the movie from feeling overly somber. Nevertheless, as Marvel Cinematic Universe grew, the comedy increasingly dominated, frequently detracting from the excitement and the tension of the action. Whenever there's a moment of action or an emotional scene, there's always someone cracking a joke that undermines the intended sentiment. When we're supposed to be feeling sorrow over someone's death, the humor just diminishes the gravity of the situation and the stakes involved. It undermines everything that has led up to that point, making the joke seem misplaced, insensitive, irreverent, and frustrating. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, aka the MCU, used to have a charming quality as it would incorporate humor sparingly, at opportune moments, or in subtle ways that weren't immediately obvious as jokes. This approach was effective and added to the overall appeal. However, now the MCU seems to be primarily focused on humor, which has caused it to lose its original charm. The MCU's success has led to an over-reliance on comedy to keep people interested, even though ironically it's the farthest thing from comedy. Marvel's tendency to lean heavily on humor has resulted in a formulaic and repetitive comedic approach, and people are tiring of it. The injection of jokes into the inappropriate scenes and the transformation of once serious characters into mere comic relief characters has become the frequent occurrence in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This approach strips away the tension and the gravitas of the story, making it feel like nothing is at stake, and the characters do seem less authentic. It creates this impression that the films are just one long outtake. When the audience doesn't believe that the characters are in danger, it's hard to be invested in their journey. There is a belief among some fans that Thor: The Dark World was a catalyst for Marvel's decision to alter its approach. Previously, the Thor series was considered Marvel's more serious franchise. However, after the box office failure of Thor: Dark World and then the subsequent success of something like Thor: Ragnarok, Marvel pivoted towards more comedic tones in all their movies. They seem to have forgotten that there's a balance to everything. Anything overused in a corporate way is sure to topple eventually, or drive people running for the hills. As a matter of fact, they've forgotten the whole reason why scenes like this work.
Enough! You are all of you beneath me. I am a god, you dull creature, and I will not be bullied by that.
See, the humor in that moment felt effortless and organic, especially when Hulk interrupted Loki's speech, which caught us off guard and added to the hilarity. It worked because nobody was expecting it, and it really was funny. Even in scenes that were not intended to be funny, like in the movie Deep Blue Sea.
And I'm climbing out of here.
The hell you are.
Hey, I don't work for you anymore, okay? I don't have to take your orders.
So we're not going to fight anymore. We're going to pull together and we're going to find a way to get out of here. First, we're going to seal off this.
Oh my god.
A shocking moment like this in the middle of an inspirational or supposed confident speech can be so jarring and unexpected that you have no choice but to end up laughing. The Avengers scene with Loki and the Hulk was particularly effective because it cleverly parodied the trope of the villain giving this long-winded explanation to the heroes just for the sake of exposition. I always made fun of that as well and thought it was quite annoying. This self-aware nod to the common narrative device added this extra layer of humor to the scene, making it all the more funny. It's evident that Marvel recognized the success of the Loki and Hulk scene as they continue to replicate the same formula of subverting audience expectations by injecting humor into their other MCU films. And it's the same type of humor. However, the franchise has reached a point where the humor is overused to such an extreme that it has become predictable and banal. It has reached a saturation point where audiences have come to expect every serious scene to be immediately followed by a witty quip or ironic joke.
Beef. Because that's all you have, right?
Okay, you'll have the beef.
Yes. And the beef.
2 beefs.
What was once a fresh and innovative approach has now become uninspired and tedious. For example,
Last time I trusted someone, I lost an eye.
while the scene initially seemed promising and opened up the possibility of exploring the mystery behind Nick Fury's missing eye, the writers ultimately failed to deliver. Their decision to reveal that Fury lost his eye to a cat was an underwhelming and unsatisfying conclusion to the storyline that held a lot of potential. Trust me, I'm not one of those people who like to throw around the old stale argument to the issues of a movie by deflecting and shouting, but in the book or in the comic this happened. And I understand different Nick Furies have different backstories. However, I don't know why I ended up being surprised that they chose for the most ridiculous reason as to why Nick Fury lost his eye. The most ridiculous reason being one that a court jester would come up with had he been writing these scripts. An example of how this would have been more meaningful for the character Nick Fury, who's supposed to be seen as a character to be respected and intimidating, is for an explanation similar to the original backstory for how Nick Fury lost his eye. The original Nick Fury's backstory in a comic that features a flashback to World War II, Nick Fury, while on mission to stop this German superweapon, comes upon this Nazi soldier who unleashes a hand grenade on the Howling Commandos, and Nick Fury heroically intercepts the grenade to save his troops, but he ends up losing his eye in the process. See, this gives way more depth to the character and makes me respect him more, and also makes me more interested in him as a Marvel character than for him just becoming the comic relief in a dumb movie like Captain Marvel. Instead, they ruined one of the biggest mysteries in the MCU for a quick laugh that was not even funny and was just downright disappointing and cheesy in the most nauseating way possible.
Lucy. Huh? Those bad guys still in there somewhere. Oh, mother flicking.
You okay?
Yeah, it's just a scratch.
And for me, someone who doesn't even consider herself a Marvel fan, it was really disappointing seeing that. One of the most egregious instances of this tonal shift can be seen in the finale of Thor Ragnarok. Asgard, a powerful and ancient civilization, is destroyed in a cataclysmic explosion, with only a fraction of its population managing to escape, along with Thor. This event is a significant turning point for the main characters, who have called Asgard home for countless generations. The fact that such a catastrophic event is portrayed in a comedic light feels almost blasphemous, and it undermines the gravity of what's supposed to be a tragic moment, especially for the main character Thor.
The damage is not too bad. As long as the foundations are still strong, we can rebuild this place. It will become a haven for all peoples and aliens of the universe. Now those foundations are gone, sorry.
They started off that scene with a quiet melancholy of losing their home, and it was beautiful. I started feeling sad when I saw it, and where they could have had the opportunity to inspire. It all boils down to Korg exercising his unneeded comedic relief, which ironically is not a relief at all. What a joke. I mean that with sarcasm as heavy as curdled creamer. I liked Korg's character, don't get me wrong, but in that moment I wanted to slap him so hard that he became a puddle of rocks. And I know that makes no sense, but that's how I felt in the moment.
What have I done? You saved us from extinction. Asgard is not a place. It's a people.
I like how Marvel just expects us to laugh at when something horrible is happening to the main characters that we're supposed to love. Even though Guardians of the Galaxy 1 did a great job with its humorous atmosphere, many believe that Guardians 2 was ruined also because of the jokes. They pushed so far to make Guardians of the Galaxy 2 so funny that it actually became unfunny. Now, does this break movies altogether? Definitely not. There are many movies that use over-the-top humor or try very hard to be funny, like the modern-day Family Guys, and it's still decent entertainment for many people. However, what it does do is prevent people from forming any bonds or investment in the characters because nothing ever feels serious. We're thrust into a world where the writers and the creators expect us to believe that this world is real. Yet, they play out the script and the unneeded humor as though we're watching a sitcom. The last good Marvel movie I can remember where things felt real and where it felt like there were actually stakes was Captain America: Winter Soldier. It's also one of the best Marvel movies in my opinion. Maybe all this Three Stooges gag humor is due to the company belonging to Disney, where everything is expected to cater to 4-year-olds and people who find anything funny from paint drying to fish farting. As time progresses, all the Disney properties, including Marvel, become more lifeless, more manufactured, and more disconnected from their audience. Even in a movie like Avengers: Infinity War, you just can't escape it.
Swear to me on your mother.
Okay.
Dude, how long have you been standing there?
An hour.
An hour?
It's a lovely, touching, romantic scene filled with tension and emotion. Even Star-Lord gets serious in the moment because of the idea of losing his love, especially when she invokes his mother for him to keep his promise. And everyone thought it was going to end there, and it really should have. Yet for some reason, it continues and is ruined by an insert joke here after serious or emotional moment before the audience feels anything, joke by Drax. Now granted, the first time I saw it, it was funny.
I've mastered the ability of standing so incredibly still that I've become invisible to the eye. Watch.
But it did distract from the moment at hand to the point where I only remember Drax saying how he's invisible and not what led to that scene in the first place. I didn't even remember the conversation that Peter Quill and Gamora had or that they even kissed until I looked back to find this example.
Blasphemy!
Now, while we can sort of forgive films like Guardians of the Galaxy or in cases like the aforementioned due to the overall tone of the characters and the movies being such, there are so many other Marvel movies that keep interrupting dramatic scenes, thinking it's a hearty horror clown moment to distract the audience. There's nothing that diminishes a superhero's impressive feats and accomplishments or an emotional scene more than interrupting them with a quick comedic jab. This kind of humor creates the sense of disconnection between the audience and the characters, making it seem like we're watching gestures on the screen rather than fully realized characters with real emotions and depth. One of the reasons I absolutely love the Guardians of the Galaxy trailer, the new one for the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 trailer, is because in the little moments that we see the characters, I mean, there's comedic relief there too, and it's cute, but in those emotional scenes, we get to witness some really emotional moments from these characters who've always been in the lens of humor. I mean, more so than I've seen in the other movies. That's what really drew me to want to watch it more than any of the other modern day Marvel movies. Also, one of my most memorable scenes about Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy is when Ego tells him that he put the tumor in his mom's brain. Hearing Star-Lord come out of it as he realizes the only person he's ever loved the most was taken away from him by his own father, who's at the moment taking advantage of him, really made me feel intimidated by Star-Lord in a good way. It's hard enough getting to feel anything for Star-Lord, particularly deeper than just, oh, I like his character, because he's always in a joking mode, but the one thing that they at least keep serious was his mom and his love for her.
It broke my heart to put that tumor in her head.
What? No, all right. I know that sounds bad.
See, this is a serious moment that made me feel for Star-Lord and stood out in my mind. It also worked for the film because we never see him sad, which is why I also like the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 trailer, seeing him lose his mind because he's lost someone. I mean, I don't know what was going on. When I first saw the trailer, I was like, what happened to him? My heart was breaking with him and I don't even know why he was crying. So when Star-Lord finally is shown a different emotion, it just hits harder. Another example of a comedic character in a scene with a tonal shift is Will Smith's Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, you understand. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool. Just for a couple of weeks. I understand. Yeah.
It was great seeing you, son.
You too, Lou.
He could ever teach me about how to love my kids.
How come you don't want me, man?
Even watching this over now, tears are flowing. I didn't actually see this full episode. I only saw this clip, and this is like my third time watching it. Unbelievably, this is a comedy sitcom, a show made to be comedic, and it does emotional, poignant moments way better than Marvel does these days. Humor can be a valuable tool in filmmaking, particularly in movies that are not inherently comedic. It is critical, however, that it's employed at the appropriate times and in a way that supports the plot rather than it detracting from it. It's my hope that in the future, superhero films will be taken more seriously and that filmmakers will use humor in a way that enhances the story and the characters rather than diminishing them, because that's what's happening with a lot of the newer films, especially from the MCU, especially when it comes to new superheroes. We've already had some great examples of this, such as Amazon's series, The Boys, and the series Invincible. What makes those works resonate with audiences is the balance they strike between comedic moments and more serious dramatic ones. When characters are in danger or some real shit is going down, the audience feels a sense of genuine concern because the stakes feel real and the danger is palpable and you see examples of that happening. There's actually blood, there's people dying, there's people sad and angry, and in that moment, their emotions are valid. And for the people watching, if they're catering towards kids, it would be nice to know that kids know how to handle these sort of emotions. They're gonna be in society when people are experiencing these emotions and they're gonna completely invalidate those people's emotions by cracking a joke every 5 minutes and then complaining when people are toxic. The characters in successful shows and films feel like real people. And this is why they're so effective at drawing us in emotionally. By making us believe in the reality of the moment, we become invested in the character's journey and care about what happens to them. Marvel has forgotten this, and hopefully, maybe this is asking for too much, but I still do hope that one day they will be cured of their greed-infested amnesia and make good superhero movies again, because clearly they've forgotten. Thanks so much for watching. This has been Ultiori. You ask, we answer.